really beautiful out here, and the pelicans are everywhere. So I'm going to try to get a little further in chapter 2. I hope you can see. Let me take this out a little bit. Everywhere there's seagulls and pelicans and all kinds of stuff. So let's see which way to go. Up or down. Something. And you can see them. There we go. I hope you can see them. Okay, so page 31 from Getting to Yes is don't react to emotional outbursts. Releasing emotions can prove risky if it leads to an emotional outburst. This makes me laugh because I watch birds have emotional outbursts every time I see them. They just fight and fuss. Okay, sorry. If not controlled, it can result in a violent quarrel. One unusual and effective technique to contain the impact of emotions was used in the 1950s by the Human Relations Committee, a labor management group set up in the steel industry to handle emerging conflicts before they became serious problems. The members of the committee adopted the rule that only one person could get angry at a time. This made it legitimate for others not to respond stormily to an angry outburst. It also made letting off emotional steam easier by making an outburst itself more legitimate. That's okay, it's his turn. The rule has the further advantage of helping people control their emotions. Breaking the rule implies that you have lost self-control, so you lose some face. The next one is use symbolic gestures. Any lover knows that to end a quarrel, the simple gesture of bringing a red rose goes a long way. Acts that would produce a constructive emotional impact on one side often involve little or no cost to the other. A note of sympathy, a statement of regret, a visit to a cemetery, delivering a small present for a grandchild, shaking hands or embracing, eating together, all may be priceless opportunities to improve a hostile emotional situation at small cost. On many occasions, an apology can diffuse emotions effectively, even when you do not acknowledge personal responsibility for the action or admit an intention to harm. An apology may be one of the least costly and most rewarding investments you can make. Next category on page 32 is communication. Without communication, there is no negotiation. Negotiation is a process of communicating back and forth for the purpose of reaching a joint decision. Communication is never an easy thing, even between people who have an enormous background of shared values and experience. Couples who have lived with each other for 30 years still have misunderstandings every day. It is not surprising, then, to find poor communication between people who do not know each other well and who may feel hostile and suspicious of one another. Whatever you say, you should expect that the other side will almost always hear something different. There are 3 big problems in communication. First, negotiators may not be talking to each other, or at least not in such a way as to be understood. Frequently, each side has given up on the other and is no longer attempting any serious communication with it. Instead, they talk merely to impress third parties or their own group, rather than trying to dance with their negotiating partner toward a mutually agreeable outcome. They try to trip him up. Rather than trying to talk their partner into a more constructive step, they try to talk the spectators into taking sides. Effective communication between the parties is all but impossible if each plays to the gallery. Even if you are talking directly and clearly to them, they may not be hearing you. This constitutes the second problem in communication. Note how often people don't seem to pay enough attention to what you say. Probably equally often, you would be unable to repeat what they had said. In a negotiation, you may be so busy thinking about what you are going to say next, how you are going to respond to that last point, or how you are going to frame your next argument, that you forget to listen to what the other side is saying now. Or you may be listening more attentively to your constituency than to the other side. Your constituents, after all, are the ones to whom you will have to account for the results of the negotiation. They are the ones you are trying to satisfy. It is not surprising that you should want to pay close attention to them. But if you are not hearing what the other side is saying, there is no communication. The third communication problem is misunderstanding. What one says, the other may misinterpret. Even when even when negotiators are in the same room, communication from one to the other can seem like sending smoke signals in a high wind. Where the parties speak different languages, the chance for misinterpretation is compounded. For example, in Persia, the word compromise apparently lacks the positive meaning it has in English of a midway solution both sides can live with, but has only a negative meaning, as in, our integrity was compromised. Similarly, the word mediator in Persian suggests meddler, someone who is barging in uninvited. In early 1980, UN Secretary General Waldheim flew to Iran to seek the release of American hostages. His efforts were seriously set back when Iranian national radio and television broadcast in Persian a remark he reportedly made on his arrival in Tehran. I have come as a mediator to work out a compromise. Within an hour of the broadcast, his car was being stoned by angry Iranians. What can be done about these three problems of communication? First, or the next section, listen actively and acknowledge what is being said. The need for listening is obvious, yet it is difficult to listen well, especially under the stress of an ongoing negotiation. Listening enables you to understand their perceptions, feel their emotions, and hear what they are trying to say. Active listening improves not only what you hear, but also what they say. If you pay attention and interrupt occasionally to say, "Did I understand correctly what you are saying that ... the other side will realize that they are not just killing time, not just going through a routine. They will also feel the satisfaction of being heard and understood." It has been said that the cheapest concession you can make to the other side is to let them know they have been heard. Standard techniques of good listening are to pay close attention to what is said, to ask the other party to spell out carefully and clearly exactly what they mean, and to request that ideas be repeated if there is any confusion or uncertainty. Make it your task while listening not to phrase a response, but to understand them as they see themselves. Take in their perceptions, their needs, and their constraints. Many consider it a good tactic not to give the other side's case too much attention and not to admit any legitimacy in their point of view. A good negotiator does just the reverse. Unless you acknowledge what they are saying and demonstrate that you understand them, they may believe you have not heard them. When you then try to explain a different point of view, they will suppose that you still have not grasped what they mean. They will say to themselves, "I told him my view, but now he's saying something different, so he must not have understood it." Then, instead of listening to your point, they will be considering how to make their argument in a new way, so that this time maybe you will fathom it. So show them that you understand them. Okay, let me see whether I follow what you're telling me. From your point of view, the situation looks like this, ... As you repeat what you understood them to have said, try to phrase it positively from their point of view, making the strength of their case clear. You might say, "Okay, you have a strong case. Let me see if I can explain it. Here's the way it strikes me, ... Understanding is not agreeing. One can, at the same time, understand perfectly and disagree completely with what the other side is saying. But unless you can convince them that you do grasp how they see it, you may be unable to explain your viewpoint to them. Once you have made their case for them, then come back with the problems you find in their proposal. If you can put their case better than they can, and then refute it, you maximize the chance of initiating a constructive dialogue. on the merits and minimizing the chances of their believing you have misunderstood them. I'm going to reread that for my own benefit. Stay with me. Understanding is not agreeing. One can, at the same time, understand perfectly and disagree completely with what the other side is saying. But unless you can convince them that you do grasp how they see it, you may be unable to explain your viewpoint to them. Once you have made their case for them, then come back with the problems that you find in their proposal. If you can put their case better than they can and then refute it, you maximize the chance of initiating a constructive dialogue on the merits and minimizing the chance of their believing you have misunderstood them. All right, let's see if we can squeeze a little more in here. Speak to be understood. Talk to the other side. It is easy to forget sometimes that a negotiation is not a debate. Doing a little work over there, so. Okay, speak to be understood. Talk to the other side. It is easy to forget sometimes that a negotiation is not a debate, nor is it a trial. You're not trying to persuade some third party. The person you're trying to persuade is seated at the table with you. If a negotiation is to be compared with a legal proceeding, the situation resembles that of two judges trying to reach agreement on how to decide a case. Try putting yourself in that role, treating your opposite number as a fellow judge with whom you are attempting to work out a joint opinion. In this context, it is clearly unpersuasive to blame the other party for the problem, to engage in name-calling, or to raise your voice. On the contrary, it will help to recognize explicitly that they see the situation differently and to try to go forward as people with a joint problem. To reduce the dominating and distracting effect that the press, home audiences, and third parties may have, it is useful to establish private and confidential means of communicating with the other side. You can also improve communication by limiting the size of the group meeting. In the negotiations over the city of Trieste in 1954, for example, little progress was made in the talks among Yugoslavia, Britain, and the United States until the three principal negotiators abandoned their large delegations and started meeting alone and informally in a private house. A good case can be made for changing Woodrow Wilson's appealing slogan, "Open covenants openly arrived at," to "Open covenants privately arrived at." No matter how many people are involved in a negotiation, important decisions are typically made when no more than two people are in the room. And the next is, speak about yourself, not about them. In many negotiations, each side explains and condemns at great length the motivations and intentions of the other side. It is more persuasive, however, to describe a problem in terms of its impact on you than in terms of what they did or why I feel let down. Instead of you broke your word, we feel discriminated against, rather than you're a racist. If you make a statement about them that they believe is untrue, they will ignore you or get angry. They will not focus on your concern, but a statement about how you feel is difficult to challenge. You convey the same information without provoking a defensive reaction that will prevent them from taking it in. Speak for a purpose. Sometimes the problem is not too little communication, but too much. When anger and misperception are high, some thoughts are best left unsaid. At other times, full disclosure of how flexible you are may make it harder to reach agreement rather than easier. If you let me know that you would be willing to sell a house for $80,000 after I have said that I would be willing to pay as much as $90,000, we may have more trouble striking a deal than if you had just kept quiet. The moral is, before making a significant statement, know what you want to communicate or find out, and know what purpose this information will serve. All right, I've been reading to you from Chapter 2, The Method. Separate the people from the problem. We're on page 36 of Getting to Yes, Negotiating Agreement Without Giving In. Roger Fisher and William Ury. And this also has Bruce Patton of the Harvard Negotiation Project. I'll continue with Prevention Works Best. Thank you for being with me. You know I appreciate you.